The new museum buffs have landed in Rise of Kingdoms, and I think some of these might be a game changer. Come check it out. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another Rise of Kingdoms gameplay video from your very own Shappy Gaming. Today we are going to be breaking down the new museum buffs that have come to the Gen 1 commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, as well as the leak that we got from the lovely 1093 of the Gen 2 commander buffs. We're going to be talking about all of the different buffs, how you can get them, and which ones I personally feel are the most valuable. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? So first things first, there have been a ton of buffs added to all of the previous Gen 1 commanders. And all of these buffs require, fortunately, all of the same materials that we had before. So if you have not already been collecting your relic coins, now is definitely the time to start collecting them. You can get them through daily objectives. You can get them by buying the Echoes of History bundle, and you can get them through the Civilization Explorer event. Typically, they've been very easy to come by up until now, so I have accumulated quite a few, so you probably likely have too. Now, all of these buffs improve on the existing skills that have already been added for these museum buff commanders. So for example, if we look at Double C, we see that cavalry health plus 20% and then active skill damage factor of plus 200%. However, if we look at this, we see that the next level of the buff is cavalry health 30% and active skill damage of 300. So the way this works is it's additive onto the previous skill. So you're not getting 50% total, you're only getting the 30% total. But that said, this is actually a really robust buff for this commander. If we take a look at some of the other cavalry commanders that we already have in the game, the 30% cavalry health buff is really not there. And so even if we take a look at our lovely Nevsky, you can see March speed, you can see cavalry health bonus of 20%, you can see cavalry defense bonus of 20%. But if we look at Double C now with this museum buff, we're seeing that we have a March speed bonus of 10%, an attack bonus of 30%, and we now have a health bonus of additional 30%, and the damage factor on this commander has gone from what was 1400 up to now 1700. So personally, I think these buffs are actually pretty good. Now, which are the ones that you should actually be investing in? So without really much hesitation at all, I can say that you definitely want the YSG buff. Why? Well, Boudica YSG is still one of the meta pairs in the game, and so if you can up that march to make it even stronger, there's no reason why you shouldn't. And if we take a look at this buff, it's actually pretty good. So you're getting an extra 10% archer defense, and you're getting an extra 2% skill damage. That may not mean much to you, but that archer defense makes YSG a little bit tankier, which we all know Boudica YSG desperately needs. And that skill damage has a huge impact because that 2% is actually really impactful when you take a look at the fact that YSG has a massive skill damage boost already, and Boudica deals a ton of skill damage. So that combination of the two is actually going to be really, really valuable. At least I expect it to be. And as I said, a ton of skill damage, 2300. So that's my first recommendation off the bat. I think if you haven't maxed YSG early in the game, you should definitely consider it. If you're later on in the game, that's a little bit more of a conversation. Now for the next commander that I'm actually really excited for their buff, Charles Martel. This initial buff made Charles Martel really viable in the game, especially when you take a look at who you might pair him with. Typically, you would say Alex Herald or Martel Herald. And Spartan Gaming made a whole video on this. I'm not going to reiterate all that here. But this museum buff made it so Martel is extraordinarily tanky, which when you're running Herald is really valuable because you get that massive counterattack damage plus the instant proc skill damage. When they first added this, they gave Martel 25% attack, which was really, really nice because if you take a look at Martel today, his skills are mostly you get counterattack damage, you get 20% defense, 20% health, and 20% march speed with expertise. So there was no attack. Now you're getting that attack as well, which makes him even more well-rounded. But with this museum buff, which we can go over right here, you actually see that his next level, he's getting an extra 10% attack and an extra 5% health, which overall makes him one of the tankiest infantry commanders that are in the game, mainly by stats. And he has that shield proc. So personally, what I'm really excited to see is how Martel works with Herald in the field today, and if we see a Guan Martel becoming more viable in terms of just tankiness on the field. Now let's click through some of the other buffs so you guys can see them. We have Ethelfled. She has gotten an additional 10% attack and an additional 5% march speed. Personally, I don't think that's all that big of a deal. We went over Double C earlier. We have Martel. YSG, I absolutely think you should invest in. Then we've got Richard. Infantry march speed of 10%, counterattack damage plus 3%. I'm not crazy about this buff for a couple reasons. I'm not crazy about it because one, you're never going to be able to run away with Richard. And two, counterattack damage doesn't make all that big of a difference because he's not going to be the first one I'm going to be attacking. So counterattack damage is mostly useful when you're getting swarmed. They've added in an additional 3% counterattack damage and an additional 5% march speed. That's not really a great buff, in my humble opinion. This next buff I am a big fan of. When the museum buffs first came to the game, we saw Mehmed II get a major boost. And why is that? Because he got 20% truth health and 5% additional skill damage, which made it so I saw a lot of pairings where you were running high skill damage commanders like XY with Mehmed. Now we can look at this and we get an additional 10% on top of that 20% troop health. So you're up to a 30% troop health and you're getting an extra 5% skill damage. This is absolutely massive. If you have a Nuger March, you can absolutely run this because you've gotten the tankiness, you've gotten an additional 10% skill damage on top of Mehmed's already existing skill damage buff from his standard skills. So if we go down here, take a look at that. You can see he's already dealing an additional 20% skill damage. So now he's dealing even more. And you're getting that extra nuke and tankiness from the health, which is really nice. Who might you be running him with? You could probably run him with XY, or you can run him with Saladin if you want a little bit of tankiness with an extra skill damage. Saladin desperately needs that boost on skill damage. Or you can be running him with Nevsky. I've seen that as well. It really varies depending upon what you want to do. Overall, I think if you're looking for an extra commander to throw into your marches, Mehmed is really nice. He has that great AoE, and with this museum buffs, he's dealing 10% extra skill damage, which is absolutely crazy to me. Okay, on to the next commander. We've got Minamoto, our lovely Moneymoto. For all you whales out there that have maxed Minamoto, we have gotten a little bit of an extra buff here. So when this first came out, it didn't make all that much of a difference in the meta gameplay. I still don't think it will. But we're seeing him get an extra 10% defense and an extra 5% attack. Not bad, not great. I think Minamoto is probably not going to be your main go-to field march. Now, this next commander is one that I am super excited for. Julius Caesar. Why? Because Julius Caesar is one of those underrated commanders that no one has ever cared about. But the reason that this skill is so important is because originally they gave him a 10% all damage buff. That didn't really mean much because Julius Caesar is not a commander you're going to be wanting to run in your 5-march setup. However, that original 10% buff made it so that Julius Caesar's skill here, where he's dealing an additional 30% increased damage, was 40%. And now, with our museum buffs, we're seeing Julius Caesar get even more powerful. So if we take a look at this, we're seeing Julius Caesar get up to 20% now, all damage, and 20% march speed. What does this mean? This means that Julius Caesar is now dealing, I believe it's a 50% buff to skill damage, or to all damage. And why does this matter? This includes skill damage, this includes counterattack damage, this includes normal attack damage, which means that Julius Caesar is going to make your march instantly more powerful so long as you can last in the field. And this first skill is not bad too, because you're getting attack and defense, and then you're going to be taking 10% less damage. So this can be a really interesting setup. And with this fourth skill and his expertise, you're getting that extra skill damage from his expertise. And with the fourth skill, you're actually getting extra troop capacity. So Julius Caesar may actually be a commander that we're going to be seeing in the field going forward, which is absolutely crazy to me. That said, do not make Julius Caesar your primary. His setup is not going to work for that. However, I could totally see people running Julius Caesar behind someone like Harold, so you can A, not get swarmed immediately, and B, get that massive damage bonus, which Harold will value because he does have that instant proc skill damage. You could probably also run him behind, again, Saladin to help with that skill damage that you desperately need, as well as, give you a little bit extra tankiness because you've got that 10% reduced counterattack damage. If you do want me to test these pairs, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to do it, but I do want to make sure you guys want to enjoy it. And if you're still here, do be sure to hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right hand corner. Hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. And if you are liking the video, drop a like. It always helps me out. So swiftly moving onward, we have Frederick's skill, which is 25% troop attack and 10% skill damage reduction. They've now upped that. They've given him an extra 15% troop attack and an extra 5% skill damage reduction. That's pretty good in my opinion. Then you've got El Cid, Hannibal, Mulan, Charlemagne, Ragnar, and Topmost. The most interesting one, I think, out of all of these is going to be Topmost. So let's take a look at him real quick. As you can see with Topmost, they have made him super powered. They've given him an extra 20% archer attack and an extra 15% archer health. Topmost may actually be viable now. I'm personally very curious to see how he works out as we get further and further into the game. It does look, oh, cool, I can salvage that. I would like to see Topmost get tested now that they've amped him up. I do believe he has some pretty powerful standard skills anyways. I think if you're coming out of KVK3 and you already have him expertise, he may be worth actually throwing into a 5-march setup, especially if you're an archer primary. Now we also have Mulan, who is awesome. So if we take a look at Mulan, we can see that we have troop health plus 10% and skill damage reduction of plus 5%. If you're running Mulan in your 5-march setup already, she's going to be a good commander to invest in, and you definitely don't want to skip this museum buff. Now, I'm not going to unlock the rest of these because personally, I don't think they're terribly good. If you do want to see these, they're in my Discord, which is going to be linked in the description. But there are some Gen 2 commanders that I think we need to talk about. So again, huge thank you to 1093. This is what I have personally been waiting for. And this is the museum buffs for the Gen 2 commanders. So let's walk through it, shall we? So we've got Genghis Khan with an additional cavalry defense of plus 10%, an active skill damage factor of 100. The active skill damage factor is going to be valuable because Genghis Khan's skill can trigger multiple times, but that's kind of a skimpy skill damage factor boost, and the cavalry defense of plus 10% is not going to bring him into my standard 5-march setup. Then we have Saladin. Saladin is already very viable into late game, and that extra cavalry attack of 10% is going to help you with that skill damage that you desperately need, and the march speed is actually going to make Saladin one of your best chasing commanders if you have farmer hitters or other things like that. Saladin's going to be extraordinarily quick now, so that's not a bad setup, I think. Next one is going to be Constantine. I still don't think Constantine is terribly viable in the field today, but the infantry attack is going to give him a little bit more punch, and the normal attack damage should make it so even when he's not being targeted, he's dealing a little bit more damage. That's going to be mainly useful in Sunset Cannon, at least in my personal opinion. The next one I am kind of pumped about, and that's Alex. Alex did not need a buff, but he got one. And so we see infantry defense of plus 10%. That's going to be really nice because my Guan Alex is constantly getting swarmed and not dealing enough damage. And so infantry defense is going to make me a little bit tankier. Normal attack damage reduction is also going to be nice because it means I'm taking just a little bit less standard damage, which is going to give me more time for those skill damage procs to come out. The next one is super exciting to me, and that is Tamiris. She got a archer health of plus 15% and march speed of 10%. The march speed is kind of meh, but Tamiris always needed a little bit more tankiness. She may be very viable with Cyrus, especially now. I'm curious to see how this museum buff shakes out. Again, if you want me to test, let me know in the comment section below. Next one is going to be Edward of Woodstock, archer defense of plus 10%, active skill damage factor of 150. Kind of underwhelmed by this. I think we saw the skill damage factor boost be a lot better for commanders like Double C. He got a 200, and Edward's skill damage already takes so long to generate. I think they should have given him more, but they didn't. So personally, I'm not really sold on that. Next one is going to be Wu. You've got the 5% or 15% troop attack and 5% skill damage. I'm also kind of underwhelmed with that. Wu is not a meta garrison setup right now, and troop attack and skill damage I don't think is going to do it for her. I would have liked to have seen health and skill damage, but beggars can't be choosers. So If you guys are as excited about the museum buffs as I am, let me know in the comment section down below. Who are you investing in? I have my top 5, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Thank you all. Shappy out.